Today I have a really incredible podcast guest. His name is Dr. Aman Amir. Dr. Amir is a medical doctor. He's a GP based in the United Kingdom. He's also a book author, a fiction author, and a magistrate. So without further ado, Dr. Amir, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Robbie. Good afternoon. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. So,
Did you have a Christmas? Did you have a nice Christmas? Did you get to rest at all? Or?
Oh yeah, it was amazing because this year everything was different due to lockdowns and with the pandemic going on, which was in and of itself not an entirely bad thing because it took off a lot of social pressure, keeping lots of different appointments. So I totally enjoyed the time. So how about you? How have your Christmas, New Year have been?
It's been different. It's been another experience, hasn't it? In terms of life is full of opportunities and experiences, and I think this year has been another exercise in that process. Really, I was lucky. I got a few days off. I got to spend some time just to gather my thoughts. I think, as you mentioned, it has been an unusual year, certainly here in the UK.
So, just to give the viewers a little bit background on you here, may I just go ahead and ask you to introduce yourself and tell us about what you do?
Yeah, my name's Aman. I'm a general practitioner here in the UK. I'm a clinical director of a group of practices here as well. I'm a lecturer as well at one of the medical schools. I recently started writing as well. So as you might have mentioned earlier, that's my new thing is writing. And I had a couple of books I published last year, and I'm working on the follow-up for them as well. So when I said I had a bit of time off, I didn't really. I was sitting down writing. So I spent some time in this imaginary world I've created, which is a nice space for me because it helps me to escape from some of what we've seen this last year.
Yeah, that's incredible. So I want to know about the writing, but first do tell me about the teaching. What do you teach?
It's interesting because just before this, the reason why I was a little bit late was I was with my students. So with the medical school, we have, of course, that we have a curriculum within the medical school, and then the different stages and different phases of their medical development. We have different types of teaching that we incorporate into their timetable. So we do things like clinical debrief, and we do things like what's called themed case discussions, which is based upon their attachments and their rotations, whether they're in. So basically, I do third years, fourth years, final years. I'm also what's called an academic advisor, so they have their portfolios that they have to keep working on. So I spend a lot of time with medical students actually, and it's actually one of the one area of my work that I really actually I enjoy all of my areas of work, but I get a lot of pleasure out of spending time with the young minds and the students who are very highly motivated to continue in medicine, which is just lovely to sort of encourage and invest in.
Right. I love that. So what made you interested in teaching, and especially teaching youngsters, like people in medical school? What made you take this special path?
Yeah, Robbie, it's not an unusual thing, I think, in medicine in particular. You'll know yourself that medical school opens many doors and opportunities for different ways of learning. And I studied in Liverpool, which as a city is fantastic, but as a medical school is also a great establishment. And when I came to Liverpool to study, one of the things that was amazing was the fact that senior years would take you under their wings, and it was almost like an apprenticeship in that respect. You know, then you would learn from your senior students, and there was a lot of mentoring, you know, more of the you know, the nurturing side of it, which you learn from senior years. And I think that's a tradition that is in medicine. So once you've learned, you learn it, you practice it, and then you teach it. And then, you know, so it was probably something that's a natural progression for all medical people, really. And you'll know that from, so when you've worked in hospitals, that's a culture, that's something that is within medicine. So all I did was just, so I spent the early part of my career, I think almost 10, 12, 13 years in hospitals. So it was very natural to do lots of bedside teaching and teaching your junior colleagues. So all that happened was when I moved over towards primary care, I just got more involved in the medical school and became more formalized in terms of my, you know, what kind of teaching activities I was getting involved in, and it's always, in my case, it's been a case of trying to juggle the different things that I do. So had I not been doing some of the other stuff, I might have taken my teaching in medical school even further, in terms of, you know, organizational side of it. But I really just enjoy the hands-on. This year is slightly different, of course, because you know, we're doing more remote, sort of long, you know, through Zooms or you know, team meetings and things like that. But it's still great to see and to interact with our medical students and, you know, doctors of the future. So it was just a natural progression, really. It wasn't. I don't think it was a decision to say I'm going to do this. It was just something that I think I just included or maybe formalized as part of activities within the week.
Right. That's very interesting what you say, that, you know, it was a natural part of the process, and you yourself are at one point, you know, being taught by others. And I had a mentor who used to say, you know, learn one, do one, and teach one. And, you know, that's a saying that we all know in, you know, in the medical field. And you know, yourself are being taught, and then you go on and work in hospitals, say for 10 years, and then you know, the natural progression. And a lot of you know, young people in medicine find this natural progression very fluidly. It happens easily. And I also see you know, struggles of certain, you know, colleagues of mine who find it not so easy to find these different paths. Do you have any, from your own experiences of, you know, like a decade of being in medicine, of finding these natural, you know, these natural progressions of finding your own path, you know, because it's given your background, you're doing really interesting things in different areas. How do you find that unique path for yourself?
Well, I think it's a brilliant question. I think so. A part of what I do with my medical students is a little bit of almost like careers fairs, and really trying to inquire in terms of what some of my students want to do or be when they grow up. So the question is, you need to have some thoughts about how you see yourself in the future, and so not everybody has that. So for some people, at a very early stage of their life, they'll know, or they'll have a feeling that this is what I want to be, whatever that is, and this is the timeline, and they will be able to plan accordingly. Now, for other people, they might not necessarily have a defined goal, but they want to be on the journey. And that's also fine. And I think with me, when I was younger, I just wanted to be a doctor. So once you have achieved that, then the rest of it is in terms of, well, what specialty, how long, what kind of work do you want to do, what kind of life do you want to have, and that's a different conversation. And so with my first, second, third year medical students, I think I do ask questions of, what interests you, what kind of specialties, do you think you want to pursue? And I think it's about understanding oneself. So we don't do a lot of reflecting or have that insight into our, what makes us tick, what makes us happy, what makes us. So there's lots of perceptions sometimes, and different people have different motivations for how and why they entered medical school in the first place, and therefore they probably may place certain expectations of themselves, and therefore they work towards those goals, and that's fine, that's cool. But if you don't know what makes you tick and you don't know what makes you happy, then it's very, very difficult to achieve those things, right? So if one wants to get into medical school, wants to become a surgeon, that's fine, that's cool. But it's not till later on that they realize, actually, I quite enjoy A, B, or C. Then they've invested a certain amount of time and energy to be on a specific track or whatever, only to find out that they are not as happy as they thought they would be. So it's difficult. Everyone's on their own journey, really, aren't they? And I think that some people are lucky that they recognize earlier, what makes them tick or what's going to happen. But life is so interesting that you can't always plan as well. So the decade or so I mentioned in the hospitals, but I've been working for nearly 20 years. So it's interesting in terms of, and things were certain, there's not a path, is there? There's not one path for everybody. There's not one size doesn't fit all. Different people have different experiences in their life, and that they have to overcome different challenges at different stages. And it's really about having, or trying to build the coping mechanisms, the resilience for those challenges. And that's part of life development. That's not really, that would be the same for anybody in any field. Like when you're 17 or 18, what you might experience from 17 or 18 to 29, 30, 40, 50, it's the skills that one has in order to be able to cope with those things, I think. So a career in medicine is no different in that respect. You become a product of your experiences to a certain degree as well, and therefore, when you're practicing your medicine, really you bring a lot of yourself into the field as well, into whatever specialty it is that you're practicing. So it's the disease, the management of the disease in the context of the individual, but also the context of the practitioner, the clinician, and what they can bring as a human to the field. It's fascinating, really, but it's something that you are able to ponder more with experience. I don't think as a second year, third year, fourth year, final year medical student, these things are not necessarily on your radar, because you're so fixed in terms of, you've got to pass these tests or these exams, you've got to move into this stream. So obviously, it's a highly competitive arena, and so people are striving to get through those stages, and we don't necessarily always think about, actually, me as a person, what do I want? What do I want to achieve with this? And I think that comes with time and growth, personal growth, really.
Personal growth. All right, so you are also a magistrate. Can you please tell me about what a magistrate does, and why magistrate? Like, why did you decide to, being a doctor, also be a magistrate?
I think I've been quite lucky in terms of, opportunities have somehow found their way to me. So first and foremostly, I think medicine is a career that involves a lot of, it's a civic duty, isn't it? It's something that we do for our communities. It's something that we do for the betterment of our communities. And actually, to respect the judicial system or the legality within your country or your communities is again something that I think is quite important. And I think as a subject or as a being involved in, again, it's something that I'm very privileged to be part of, and I see it as actually an extension of my role as a human within a community, within society. Yeah. So I often say this to people, that the people that we see on that side are not that different to the people that we see in our clinics, because it's just a different facet or a different angle of which to view society. So if I'm sat in a clinic, I'm seeing people who are seeking, who are health seeking. I might be thinking about their health seeking behaviour or their medical condition, or how. But the truth is that has an impact on them functioning as a human being within society. Yeah. And there is a crossover between education, opportunity, social structure and health in terms of how one has an impact on the other. And so crime and the effects of society has, health and things like that, does overlap a little bit. So I find that fascinating. I think it's quite interesting. Right. But I think in answer to your question, it's really just, again, just being part of part of the community and part of trying to help, giving back, really.
Yeah. That's incredible. So are there, can you, maybe for those who are not familiar with this work, and also with the system, give us one little concrete example of how these two would overlap and what you would do, in your role?
When I'm in court, so it's a different thing, because you have different courtrooms for different areas. So you might have traffic law, or you might have family courts, or you might have domestic violence courts. So you have specific courtrooms dealing with specific cases to do with specific areas of the law. So to give you an example, might be that as a doctor, as a clinician, I might see a patient who might be suffering from some mental health issues, right? So I might be looking after them, following them up, counselling them, dealing with medications to help this particular individual with their mental health problems. Now, separate from that, I might be in court and I might be overseeing a case that has to do with, some domestic violence, okay? Now, when I'm in that case, I'm only hearing from two sides of the party and dealing with that particular case. But as a human, as a me, I can reflect on that and think, well, actually, that individual has got some mental health problems. Yeah. So I don't see, me as a person, I don't see that as just that case. I see it as a problem with, so somebody who might have health concerns might not necessarily might have problems with their work. Right. So I might see, as a doctor, I might have to do some notes or notification about somebody who is able or not able to perform their job. Yeah. But from a court point of view, I might be dealing with a case where somebody has not, somebody's having some issues with work. Yeah. Right. And so working as a doctor, it's quite nice to have insights into legality, and working as a magistrate, it's really nice to have that insight in terms of sort of health stuff. So many times when I'm in a courtroom and somebody's having to provide a medical note for legal purposes, but of course I understand what that medical note is because I'm a doctor. So it's advantageous in that respect. It doesn't necessarily have too much weight in terms of the decision making, but of course it gives me more insight into what maybe that person may or may not be experiencing. So that's quite nice. So for me, it's a bit of a complete circle in terms of that. That bit can help this area, And that, so
Right.
all of it really, everything that I do, I think overspills into the other arena. So being involved with teaching actually has taught me lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Being involved in working in communities, whether it be from a medical or a legal point of view, just makes me more responsible as a citizen
Yeah.
or part of that community. And I think it's that really that can be quite fulfilling, in terms of like what you're giving
Right. Right.
to the groups really.
Yeah, absolutely. So this, the different types of work that you do, having been there, having done all those things, do you think for doctors or people in medical professions, it's possible and it's desirable, or if it's advisable for them to have multiple career paths, to pursue different kinds of passions and be all of those things, rather than just what we used to see a lot in the past, that if you're a doctor, you just do your medical work and you keep doing that until you retire. So has that changed in your view, and is it a good thing that people pursue different interests?
Yeah, I think it's a reflection of the times. Actually, I think when I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up in the well, I won't say years, but certainly when we were growing up, we didn't have. There was this notion of you were good academically, or you were good. Everybody was boxed. Everyone was pigeonholed. Certain people are good at sports, or certain people are good at this, and or you're good at this. You should do this, or whatever.
Right.
In actual fact, when I was younger, I struggled because I enjoyed everything. Okay,
Yeah.
and because I enjoyed everything, I suppose it was easy in the sense that because I knew I wanted to become a doctor, the path was easy in that you had to get this and you had to do this and you got to medical school.
Right.
So it was easy in the sense that I knew what was ahead of me, not necessarily easy achieving those things, but it was easy as a clear path.
Yeah.
But I think as time has moved on, we do recognize that people can have lots of different skills.
Yeah.
Okay, so but the thing is, it's not always possible to pursue all things at the same time. So
Yeah.
what I've done in the last 10 years has been because I have reached a certain point in the other areas. So, I mean, I wouldn't advise somebody to try doing extracurricular stuff if they want to. If you want to become a surgeon and you want to do these things, you have to pass those postgrad exams.
Right.
That's not the time to be doing anything else. You have to be very focused at that point.
Right.
So when I was going through my training and stuff, that's what I was doing. I was just trying to get through those things. I suppose after you reach a certain level of comfortability, or which actually you're never really comfortable in because you're always learning. But the point is that once you feel like you've jumped through those hoops, there does come a point in your life where you go, actually, now maybe is the time to pursue or enjoy the activities that I used to do when I was younger, or whatever. I think in some ways it's become easier because a lot of career paths, certainly in the UK, are much more, they're in tracks now. So you finish your training, you get a junior doctor job, and you work and you get into such and such a stream.
Right.
But if you're lucky and you can pursue or enjoy lots of different hobbies and activities, in fact, that's interesting because if you remember when you apply for medical school, because it's so competitive, we always encourage our candidates to be very all-rounded.
Yeah.
So not only are they getting all the top grades, but they're volunteering, or they're doing this, or they play the instruments, or they're captain of this team or that team. And then luckily at our medical school, we were able to enjoy all those things as well. So at medical school, I did do lots of extracurricular activities, but for some reason we sort of knock that out of our candidates, and then they become, you're on this track to become this, and it's harder to pursue your hobbies, and it's harder to be all-rounded, which I think later on, then once you qualify, and then you start finding yourself again.
Right.
So this is what I was trying to say, is that we're dealing with diseases in the context of the individuals. We're treating the patient as an individual.
Right.
But what happens is that you become a doctor, and then later on you have your own life experiences.
Right.
And then that knowledge base that you've learned through medical school, coupled with your own experiences as a human being, are probably what formulate you in terms of the kind of clinician or the kind of doctor that you're going to be,
Right.
and how you practice throughout your career. But in answer to your question, I think there was this thing, isn't it? People worked all their lives, they would retire, then they would die. Now I think people work and they plan their retirement, and then they want to be able to enjoy certain. And I think that's a shift in terms of what you want out of life. And I think this year, or last year just gone, has been a very good example of how people are trying to reevaluate what makes them happy, what is worth their time pursuing,
Right.
or just opening doors and trying new things. And
Right.
I think it is possible to enjoy more than one thing, and to be able to do different things. But of course, if your goal is to become a particular specialist in a particular field in a particular hospital,
Right.
then you also have to accept that there's going to be a certain amount of sacrifice
Right.
getting to that point. And it's really just for you to weigh up, is that sacrifice, is it what you a lot of sacrifices are worth the sacrifice.
Right.
So that's what you want to do. You want to sacrifice, you want to achieve what you wanted to, but what you don't want to do is sacrifice everything, get there, and then go, this wasn't worth the sacrifice.
Right.
And you won't know because people change through their lives, and different things matter at different points. So it's interesting. It's very fascinating. But I think I'm still on my journey. I think the journey doesn't necessarily stop after you reach a particular point.
Right. I love that, absolutely. So Aman, tell me, you said you have written like 2 books in the last year. How is that even possible? Like 2 books in 1 year seems to be incredible. How did you do that?
So actually, I didn't. So I don't know how it's possible. I am not sure that I can answer that question, because I get asked, what made you start writing, or why even do this? And I think because I've enjoyed lots of different activities, I'm one for trying new things. But essentially, I used to write a little bit when I was younger. So this is going back to the earlier question, is like what you have to give up to gain something. So when I was, I used to be interested in lots of things, from music to art. I used to do a lot of painting and drawing. And with that, I used to write short stories when I was younger. And I used to really love, I used to love Shakespeare. So that was a thing. But you don't get a chance to do much of that in a medical sort of setting. So obviously you get very clinical and do that sort of stuff. But we're very, very lucky that we can spend so much time sneaking into other people's lives. So I, often as a clinician, I reflect about how much of an honour it is to hear some stories that people actually live. And a few years ago, actually more than a few years ago, but there's a particular place where I worked that had a nursing home and a women's refuge. And essentially I would be seeing patients from, or doing ward rounds almost in both those establishments. And the sorts of things that I would hear or learn that people have experienced were heartbreaking, but also very inspiring.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, something that has sort of stayed. And I'm very, I'm quite a reflective sort of person anyway, so I tend to think about a lot of things. And then I guess one day I thought, you know what, I want to write. I just want to write something. I just want to write a story. I just fancied writing without any plot or anything. I just thought, yeah, whatever. But then I did what I do. I just made my mind up, and I thought, right, that's it. I'm going to just do. So as a bit of an exercise, I started writing some backstories for characters that I thought might be interesting. So I had a vague idea of a story in my mind, but one of the characters that I was writing the backstory for, I just thought, wow, this person's pretty cool. And as a result, my first novel was about that character. But it wasn't. So my first story, my first proper book, is about somebody who I had no intention of writing about. They were meant to be just an extra, or just another character. But I thought it was a very interesting viewpoint to sort of explore. So once I got into that, and I took a few sort of writing courses and went to a few festivals and get some ideas. I learned different styles of writing. So the two books that were out or that have been published, one is a novel, so it's a very sort of linear story, and the other is a collection of very short stories. And the short stories are in a format that's called flash fiction, which is basically you write very little, but it's for the reader to interpret and extrapolate a lot of information out. So, and the reason why that interested me was because every short story is like an offshoot from something from the main story.
Yeah.
So they're just different perspectives or different angles of what's going on. And I find that quite interesting. And I think I said it recently that sometimes being an extra in somebody else's story can be more impactful and powerful, and actually sometimes being that extra can be the reason why you become the hero or the main lead in your own story, because it has such a profound effect on you as an individual. So that's where those two books came from, in terms of one's a collection of very short stories and one is a proper novel. And then because I'd started that novel was never meant to be the first, that wasn't meant to be the story that I wanted to write. So then it was always brewing that I was going to write the second one, and then so on. So that's what. So this year I've been concentrating on the follow-ups to the first two. So hopefully the next two should be out soon. Of course there were delays this year because everything's been put on hold. Right. But despite that, I was able to try and. So in answer to that question, how do you do it? It's basically, once I've decided, then there's a project, isn't it? And it's really a case of working to complete or fulfill what your set targets were. So last year, once those two books were done, it was in my mind always to follow them up with two. And then so on and so forth. It's really a case of trying to do that while doing all the other stuff. But I mean, I'm not the best at time management, but sometimes it's just a case of you just got to do it and you got to find the time. So yeah, I'm not even sure I answered your question.
So how do you manage this besides your clinical practice? Do you just have like a particular time that you set aside every day that you just sit down and write? I'm very curious to know how you manage that.
So Rabia, I do a little bit of driving, yeah. So where I live and where I work, there's usually about 45 minutes to an hour drive. So there's 2 hours in a day that I do sit, essentially, yeah.
Right.
Now most of my creativity probably comes from there, in terms of I sit, I ponder, I think, I reflect, I do, I plan for the day and things like that. So usually by the end of the day, I've already got in my mind what's where we're going with whatever.
Right.
And if I'm lucky, in between things, I make voice notes or I scribble little, plot points or whatever. Usually I wouldn't even start writing something unless I had a clear plot or defined idea. But sometimes you find that if you're so rigid with what needs to happen, then you're not you're not allowing the story to flow either. So it's not really. So you have to have that flexibility in your writing. I'm still learning. I'm not. By all means, I'm not a complete writer, as it were. But I'm learning the craft. I'm learning how to do things. But certainly in the day, that's how I manage those things. Those 2 hours, or just under 2 hours, are when I'm doing a lot of my thinking, or I'm gaining a lot of my, I'm sort of sucking in all the energies from the cosmos here, in terms of what needs to happen. But it's a follow-on, isn't it? Because the process has already started. It's really a case of just writing a little bit every day, putting your ideas down, which, as I said, it's already there. It's just really about filling in, or this might be interesting, or that might be interesting, or this person, this character might have done this, or maybe they would say that, or maybe they would do that. So that's the time that I use there. And then actually between, sometimes in between patients or whatever it is, I get an idea, I'll quickly scribble, I'll just write something and then put it aside. So at the end of the day, I might have a few ideas already written down that I can think about on the drive back, which means that late at night I can probably type a little bit and just get it done. It's not a quick thing. I mean, a year and a half, I think it's a long time, actually. I wanted to have them, I wanted to churn them out, literally. But it's such a process. And again, you've just got to, sometimes you have to accept that it's going to take time. When you have an idea and you think the idea is amazing, like I have an idea for a book that I think is absolutely amazing, but I haven't got around to doing anything with it because I'm still working on the other one, and I don't want to lose focus on this, because so you just have to make some notes and put it aside and come back to it. And I guess that's about something that you learn at med school, actually, in terms of prioritizing. This is what I need to do now. I can't lose focus on this, although this is a great idea, but I need to finish this. So it's just utilizing the same skills in just in a different space, really.
Right. That's very interesting. I absolutely love the tools and tactics that you're using. You're kind of using your driving time to mentally structure everything, and then you're using, every bit of time that you get in between patients, or, however, at the end of your day to, put everything down on paper. And I love that, So tell me one thing I'm very curious to know. You mentioned, you focus only on one writing project at a time. That's what you are currently doing. So for me, having a big writing project, is kind of like it takes up a lot of mental space. Like you're thinking about it while you're driving, you're plotting the story while you're doing other work. It takes up a lot of mental space, right? So do you think you have previously said that when you're aspiring to be a surgeon, you should kind of just focus that and set aside your other dreams and aspirations, set it on the side. So do you think having a big writing project, something as big as writing a novel, requires the same amount of focused attention, or do you think you could divide your time up and do it you are certainly doing it as a side project, I fully understand, but like in terms of focusing your energy and focusing your mental, the mental faculties, how would you allocate that time?
So when I said about, if you have a drive for a particular ambition and you should be single-minded, the reason why I said that was because you want to give yourself the best opportunity to fulfill whatever it is that you're driving for. Now, at that stage of one's career, so completing medical school, as you know, is not the end of anything. It's the beginning, isn't it, really? So the journey between completion of medical degree and getting your postgraduate qualifications and then your higher training is not an easy thing.
Right.
And actually, that's a time where a lot of people have to sit and reevaluate and think about what it is that they want in life, not necessarily
Right.
just their career path, which of
Right.
course is a big part of what they're doing. But what I meant was, I think that as you develop in years, now I'm in my 40s, so the thing is that when I was in my 20s, I probably didn't have the insights or the experience or the maybe even the drive that I might have now. So I feel that me as an individual, I can't speak for anybody else, but I think those things have improved for me. So I'm now in a position that I do sometimes, like you said, I do sometimes think, oh, wow, I've got a lot going on here. I do think that. And if I was to really think hard about it, it could potentially be quite overwhelming. But the reason why it's not is because I don't necessarily do it for a particular purpose or outcome or endpoint. Nothing. I'm doing the writing or this or that for me, and that if I'm able to do it, nobody's setting me those targets other than myself.
Yeah.
Right? So the only person I'm going to disappoint is me if it doesn't happen. And maybe I would be able to live with that, yeah. But it's when you have external forces in terms of your exams mean that you get the job or that you don't get this, and that's a different thing. That's not necessarily in your.
Yeah.
You don't want. That's something that you want full control over or as much control over, and that's what I meant in terms of sometimes the element of sacrifice at that point.
Right.
But again, I'm not at that stage now, so that's a different part of my development. And to be honest, I don't think I was. So when I said I used to write when I was younger, I used to enjoy writing, but I don't necessarily think that the quality of the story was so great because I didn't have those experiences.
Yeah.
So when I'm choosing to write about fiction now, I can draw on so many different experiences or sources or pools because I've had that many more years of exposure to life. So that's where it might be better. I have got maybe more to say. So I don't know. I think there are people who manage everything, by the way. There are some people who just, it doesn't matter how old they are or what life skills they have or life experiences they have. They will just be very good at everything and they will do well and great for them. But for me, if I've seen something that I want to try and pursue and I feel I'm learning and I feel I'm developing or I'm getting better, that's enough motivation to create the time, really. And to be fair, it doesn't, if something feels like work, I think that's when it's hard. Work is hard. That's the definition of it. But the thing is, I'm fascinated by people who do the same thing but with a smile on their face.
Right.
So there has to be some reason why they seem to be getting more out of it, and therefore they do it effortlessly or seemingly less taxing for them. So. Yeah, I think I'm only doing it because I'm managing those things. I'm trying to look. Previously, I used to just listen to the radio or talk to people in the car because that was my talking time. But it's not so, like I said, because my plotting and my storyboarding and everything is done separately. So that's done. That's a process. I would do that even before I even start. The story. So the outline is already there. I already know how it's going to go.
Right.
So the stuff in the car is really scenes or scenarios, thinking that, do you know, how would it sound if it was like this? Or that's just me having a dialogue in my own head about how things will play out. Right. I'm not necessarily storyboarding everything in that time. That's just, me and my sort of downtime thinking, really, which if it wasn't about the book, it would be about something else. I'd probably be reflecting on something else. So I'm just using it to source that, really. That's all.
That's incredible. Aman, so what are I would love to know, what are your plans and, aspirations for 2021?
Wow. So first and foremost, I think I just hope and pray that 2021 brings everybody else, everyone in the world, good health. I think that's important. something that we're part of already, but we don't necessarily express it so much. I think there were lots of lessons from 2020, personally, and as a society, or all of us have got things that we could probably improve on. Me personally, I just want to carry on doing what I'm doing. Actually, I've really gained a little bit of speed in terms of so I wasn't on social media, or I don't do all these things. I'm actually quite shy, so it's just me in my own little world.
Right.
And it was only after I finished writing the previous 2 books, I thought, okay, that's cool. Who's going to read this? So, and I was just thinking about those things. But in actual fact, I've learned to embrace new things, and I'd like to sort of continue in that vein. Obviously, carry on with my writing, learn, develop. Clinically, there's lots of stuff going on, and I just want to carry on with that. I don't know what the world will be like after. So certainly this year with all the isolating and all the long distance stuff, in some ways I've found it quite beneficial, because it's meant that I've had more time to because if I'm not making the effort to go meet people or whatever, that time is really, I've been able to shave that from my, and put it into these activities.
Right.
But I learned loads of new things as well. I learned how to, last year I got a hoverboard, and I decided I'd learn how to do that with my nephews. And there's all sorts of cool little things that I've learned. So I guess it's just anything and everything that helps me improve myself as an individual, and then just carrying on with these. I'd love for people to read the books. I'd love for people to support me on that journey as well.
So I love that. So tell me, when people want to learn more about your work, about the books you've written, where can they find you?
So people can. I'd love it if people followed me on Instagram. That would be kind of cool. I'm quite new to that, so that's all exciting.
Right.
I feel like a kid. My nephew set up my Instagram account. That's how.
Right.
That's how slow and I am on this. My nephew's. It was actually my younger one. He's 10. So he set that up. That's how bad it is. So I'm at Dr. Aman Amir, author.
Okay.
On the Instagram, so that I'm just posting a few little random stuff on there, so that's cool. I have Facebook, so on Facebook it's Dr. Amir -author. I've got some a website as well, so there's dramanamir.com.
Amazing. So we're gonna put the links to all these, all the links in the descriptions. So Aman, thank you so much. It was incredible having this talk with you. It was absolutely a pleasure having you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ravi. It's been really cool.